I introduce myself? My name is KOLCHAK of the Daily Chronicle.
KOLCHAK reports the bizarre, the supernatural, the unexplainable.
You again is another crazy story.
This nut thinks he is a vampire.
You know what I call that? Irresponsible yellow journalism.
He has killed 4, maybe 5 women. I saw that so-called super killer wipe up the streets with your so-called police force.
They don't want any help from amateur bloodhounds like you.
I've been a reporter for 22 years.
I've been a police officer for 30.
Well, then why don't you retire? Each man in the field is issued one of these and one of these.
Are you suggesting that we pound one of these into Skorzeny's chest?
No, into his heart.
Darren McGavin, the Night Stalker.
Hello and welcome to MonsterKid Fury. I'm Callie. Here with me today is Rich of MonsterKid Central. Hey, Rich.
Howdy.
And Rick of Film Fury. Hi, Ricky.
Politicians, not billionaires. Did I say that? I apologize. Let's strike that from the record.
Today we have something fun on the roster, talking about KOLCHAK. All right. Go ahead, Ricky. Take it away.
Yeah, so way back when I was trying to get Rich on board for the idea of taking MonsterKid into the online forum of YouTube and podcasting, I think the one thing that we always came back to was KOLCHAK. That would be like the major thing to talk about. So it's kind of interesting. After 25, 26 episodes, we're finally going to talk about one Carl KOLCHAK. So I'm excited all the hell about that.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And when you brought me aboard, excuse me, to MonsterKid, like we always do, we verge like a drunk on the interstate on New Year's Eve. We always, no matter what we start talking about, we could be talking about Easter Sunday, and at some point in time, we're going to mention KOLCHAK, either a line of dialogue or an episode. We always roll back to that.
Yep, absolutely. And why not?
And
he was
absolutely
comfortable. He was comfortable for both of us. We really, we really connected to him.
Talking about Carl KOLCHAK is probably as comfortable as the hat that KOLCHAK wears.
Yes. Yep.
So, and it's also one of the cool, unique things because, our age differences, there's a little age difference there. And incredibly enough, it's one of the things that we click with like so easily, in terms of its distance, of how old you were when you first saw it, how old I was when I saw it, and even how old our beautiful producer was, who just finally has been introduced to the world of Night Stalker.
Finally.
She actually... Finally, yeah. So she heard me talk about it before, but she actually got to watch one.
Right.
And it was pretty wild to see her responses to it.
And can I ask which one she watched?
The movie, the starter.
Perfect.
And that's one of the common misconceptions about the Night Stalker is the original movie is referred to in many forums as the pilot, which is not accurate because there was never a television series planned for the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, like a lot of just, beautiful franchises or IPs, this would be kind of considered one of the first when you think about it. Outside of Star Trek, Twilight Zone, there had never been really the something that could be branched off into other things. But again, when they first started, it was basically a congruent set of just circumstances that came together. Because it all started with a guy named Jeff Rice. Did you read the original book?
I did. And again, they're quite different.
They are, because KOLCHAK, he's not Darren McGavin. He's more like, not Dom DeLuise, but he's pudgier, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. Yep.
Now, yeah, Jeff Rice was an actual newspaperman.
Yeah.
The old term used for reporters back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And he wrote what he knew, which is about a reporter, and he wanted to write a vampire story.
Yep.
So he wrote the KOLCHAK Papers, correct? That was the original title for the
That's
book.
what. It was called the Kolchak Papers.
And how did it play out compared to the TV movie?
Oh, it's Richard Matheson took it and did what he always does to things. There's absolutely no comparison between the book. In fact, the book's kind of boring, and the movie, which the movie's amazing.
See, and it's interesting because it's a little bit of typical Hollywood underhanded shadiness kind of thing, because Jeff Rice, who was a writer or a budding writer at that point, he sent his manuscript to Richard Matheson's agent, who read it, thought it would be an average book, but thought it would be an even better TV show. So, being an enterprising agent, started throwing the manuscript around, and it landed on the desk of Barry Diller. Now, for people who don't know, Barry Diller is one of those old school producers. We're talking about that he went from television, he went to Paramount Pictures. He was the type of person they don't make any longer. And what I mean by that is he is a non-creative entity who knows how the industry works.
Yep.
And though he can't tell a story, he can put the right people together. And it's the thing that is so sorely absent from the filmmaking and television community now.
Right.
And when this fell on his desk, he had already had the idea, and I didn't know this until I researched it. He created the movie of the week.
The movie of the week. ABC presents an original motion picture produced especially for the movie of the week. Tonight on the movie of the week.
So he sat there in his office and said, how would people respond to an original film that they don't have to go out and see? They don't have to deal with traffic or anything of the like, or getting a babysitter. They can just have their TV dinner and sit on the couch and watch a movie. And when he read the manuscript for the Kolchak Papers, he immediately thought, this is what I want. I want this as one of our movies of the week. And again, it was this brilliance on Diller's part to be able to go to the right people. He said, okay, you know what? I'm going to give this to Richard Matheson, who's written for us. Who then he brings on Dan Curtis to produce it. It's just, it's so many perfect people to work on a project.
Yes.
Because if that happened today, they would say, hey, we're going to take Dave, who wrote this story about a young man trying to learn how to play baseball. We're going to put him on this horror novel adaptation.
Right.
Where Diller just knew the right thing to do. And of course, you have Matheson, as brilliant as he is, he does a Frank Darabont, and he's able to take this book, which, as you said, is good, but it's very different, and turn it into what we know as the Night Stalker.
Yep.
Okay, quick interjection. So why is it Kolchak the Night Stalker and not just the Night Stalker or
well, the powers that be on TV, when they went to make the series, Carl Kolchak now was a household name because those two movies, ratings-wise, went through the roof. I mean, they were huge. And so they wanted to put the name in there too.
Recognition.
Recognition. So Carl Kolchak and the Night Stalker are both, were both extremely popular words. So they did Kolchak the Night Stalker.
And the second movie is Kolchak the Night Strangler?
No, the second movie's just the Night Strangler.
The Night Strangler, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
but because of those
Kolchak moniker wasn't until later with the series itself.
Ooh.
But because those two movies were extremely popular, that's why. Now, I don't know if they would have done Kolchak with the series, if Night Strangler hadn't done so well too, but they go to bat with these two things, and they're both huge, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna put Kolchak the Night Stalker as the title.
Now, along with a series of events that, just kind of fell into place, Darren McGavin was actually being geared by his agent and his wife not to do Night Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because McGavin's agent claimed it was the worst script he had ever read. And it's like, but it's Richard Matheson. Do you read genre stuff?
Yeah.
And his wife was like, I don't know. I don't think you want to be associated with something like this. And there was just something McGavin saw in it. And he was like, no, I'm going to do this thing.
Well, it's a great character. I mean, from an actor's point of view, it's a great character because you bounce between a sniveling, scared reporter and a reporter with big balls. That he goes the whole spectrum during the series and the movies.
What I love about the movie is that you really get this personality type that I love, which is like the down and out person. He's beaten and beaten, but he just keeps getting back up. He's been fired from so many different newspapers at this point. And it's really, he's such an admirable freaking character.
Yeah.
Because it's about the truth. The people need to know the truth. And at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, the truth being told to Americans was definitely under scrutiny.
Yes.
With Watergate, different issues with the government, a carryover from the Vietnam War, you had all these things going on. So a character like Kolchak was sort of needed, right?
And I'm pretty sure the Vietnam War was still going on.
Was it still?
I think when it came, was it 72?
Yes, it was 72.
Okay,
yeah.
so yes, it was, because it didn't end to 74. So
gotcha.
everything was, everything, and it came at a good time in the sense that Woodward and Bernstein were a little more of a household name. Obviously, things hadn't, they haven't stopped reporting yet, and they only stopped reporting when it broke and it became huge. But they were known in 73, 72. So that was another thing, man. I mean, like they were, I looked at them as heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the funny thing is Ben Bradley, when he wanted to talk to both of them, he called them Woodstein. Woodstein, and they both
put them together.
Yeah. So anyway,
great.
Enough about that. But so Kolchak was kind of ripe for the picking, because it's like, he's a reporter, an old style reporter, and I think that was part of it. I mean,
I remember reading an interview with Rice where he said he really wanted to do a series of articles on Las Vegas, which, of course, since its inception, had been corrupt and shady, in terms of its dealings between organized crime and local government. And he knew he couldn't write a book about it, because at that time, of course, organized mob was still pretty much in charge of a lot of Vegas. But he could write the story about a vampire killing the inhabitants of Vegas and it being covered up by the local government, which I remember watching it as a kid, and I don't think I ever picked up on those aspects. It wasn't until I was a teenager rewatching it.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, wow, you have this great kind of conspiracy thing going on with the local government pulling like the mayor and Jaws. No, we can't have people find out about this. It's just no.
Yeah, and then people having to pay for protection from the mob is the literal bloodsuckers, and that's why that worked too. I mean, it was brilliantly done.
One of the things I marvel about the original movie is it's an hour and 14 minutes,
Yeah,
which I guess would have fit into a 90-minute time
it's a
slot
90-minute time slot.
back in
Yeah,
the day.
yeah,
And I say it moves, and not simply due to it being an hour and 14 minutes. I mean, the pacing is brilliant.
yeah,
You get the exact information you need. It doesn't bog down in anything. The characters are introduced quickly, but you love every single character.
right.
No one feels weak at all.
Yeah,
From his first contact with his doctor friend at the hospital, there's so much charm in just that one moment. The whole thing, it's like, I just take pity on an aging reporter. I just love that line, and I love McGavin's reactions. He was such a brilliant, like, visual actor. Like,
yes,
some comedians will use their body, like a Jim Carrey or Robin Williams.
yeah,
He is able to do so much with his expressions.
yes.
He doesn't need to say something. He can just give a look, and it's just so well done.
It really is. McGavin was exactly the person that they needed. And honest to God, I think anybody else would have screwed the pooch. I mean, I really think that. I think McGavin came in, saw that he had an opportunity to make a character truly his, and and did exactly that.
So, Rich, were you familiar with Darren McGavin before he was Kolchak?
Yes, because my dad would take me to see war movies at the theater,
Oh,
and he had done a few. And in fact, my father did not like The Night Stalker because of the um, coward stuff that McGavin did,
oh,
or the part Kolchak,
yeah, yeah.
Kolchak's cowardly, sometimes cowardly way, because Dad saw him as a leading man
Ah, so
and
for
knew
him to
him,
portray that,
and
yeah,
I even remember back then saying, I know, but this is something where he can do something he hasn't done before. And I said, Dad, I think actors want to do that.
yeah.
I don't think they want to be, I mean, real actors. I don't think they want to be put in a box.
They
And
want growth.
right, and I say real actors because, like, I refer to John Wayne as somebody who wants to be John Wayne in every movie.
Mm.
You never ever felt that he was the character he was playing. Because he was John Wayne, and bigger than life kind of thing. Um, I I never gravitated towards someone like that. I like an actor who disappears, digs into what he's supposed to be, or she, and runs with it.
Yeah,
So
you wanna see the range.
yeah. So when I was in high school, when The Night Stalker came out,
Yes.
and I was taking a creative writing course, who was taught by the teacher who was also the science fiction literature teacher. So what I did as an exercise, and I was thrilled that nobody else did it, is I wrote a negative review of The Night Stalker. Now, that was not that was not my feeling. I freaking loved it, that movie. So I reversed it. Basically, I'm trying to tell this teacher that I'm a step above. Hate to say it
Oh,
that way, but that's what I was doing.
yes.
So if I can get her or the class to believe that I didn't like it,
Yep.
then that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, you succeeded.
Right. So I go through the whole report and just trashed it. I mean, just beat the crap out of the movie. And at the end of it, I looked up and everybody was like, because they couldn't believe that I hated the movie. And that's when I said, what I did was I had taken the last page of this book report and I had written on it, just kidding, I loved it. Because
kidding.
Because what I was afraid of happening was everybody gets pissed off at me. And I say, no, I really liked it. And nobody believes it. So that's why I did that on the last page.
Yep.
So as I did the book report, I tore the last page off and went like this and held it up.
So
and
you
said,
had
just
proof.
kidding. Just kidding. I loved it. So anyway.
You remember your grade that you got on that paper?
Oh, yeah, A+.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there was no doubt. I figured I'm either going to get an F or an A+. It's not going to be, there's not going to be any C there, you know?
No.
So anyway,
Now,
yeah.
So when it aired,
yeah,
was it that water cooler kind of Twin Peaks thing that I experienced where like the next day you hear people in school talking about it? Or
Yes. And teachers. I literally remember walking into one classroom and there was the teacher from next door was in this classroom and both of those teachers were talking about it. And I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. You know,
Yeah.
I thought this is fantastic. You know, a
it's
game
not just
changer.
Generation. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, people did talk about it. And my friends and I, who were all geeks to begin with, it must have been a week before we stopped talking about it. I mean, I think we literally spoke about nothing except for Night Stalker for like a week.
See, Rich at that point is like my guy who like saw the Beatles for the first time. I'd be like, what was it like, man? What was it like to see Kolchak the first time?
Well, I had a friend named John whose father frickin' loved Kolchak. And John and I are like together discussing something in his room, and all of a sudden the door flies open. He's going, "Where's the show, man?" That's the father. And the father was like, looked like a cast member from like The Godfather.
Oh, wow.
And he comes in, he's rattled. "Where's the show, man?" I have no idea. And that's when it had been canceled.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And then
Needless
after,
to say, he was a little pissy for the rest of the weekend.
oh, geez. All right, so walk us through it. Tell us how you watched it.
Okay, so unfortunately, I watched it alone, which sucks. But I do know that that a few in our crowd watched it together. They went over each other's house to watch it together. But I watched it, and it's so obvious that it was never done before. Now, of course, it has been 1,000 times, but it was so different, and it was so obvious that this was new. Man, I marveled at it. I just couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. And that's when I got the idea of writing the book report, the opposite, you know. But it was fantastic, and I thought that Darren McGavin should get an Emmy. I mean, I'm literally talking to my other geek friends, and I said, there better be an Emmy in this, damn it, you know.
Right?
So yeah, like anybody cared what we thought. So
I mean, enough of you get together, absolutely somebody will care.
it was so different, and it was, I mean, it was funny. It was spooky. So they got those two covered, but it was also so much else. I mean, the characters would interrupt each other, which I loved. So it wasn't that stilted dialogue that you would get from TV most of the time. And
like you were saying, all the stuff that came previously.
Yeah. And I truly think that they took some serious chances there. You know, America does not like shots of blood. And when you open up a refrigerator that has, you know, 80 bottles of blood in it,
Right.
That's a little jarring if it hasn't been done on TV before, which it had not. So yeah, it was the whole thing was different. The music was different. I mean, everything was just great. Now I've talked about in the past how I would audio tape something
Yes.
and then play it while I'm falling asleep because I was hoping that, you know, it would help with my dialogue writing and things like that. And the one thing that I didn't count on when the first time I played the tape was there is a part in when Kolchak's going through the house at the end looking for Janos Skorzeny where there's no music. So I'm sleeping,
silent.
and then all of a sudden there's a sting, you know, and and what I finally had to do is finally had to take that stinger out because it would wake me up and scare the shit out of me. So anyway,
your sleep, man.
yeah. So anyway, but yeah, the whole thing was different, and I miss the days where you get something and you think, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And just like the dialogue you were saying, it was revolutionary because again, it was like real life. You know, if you get into a heated debate with someone, you don't take the time for the next person to jump in.
Right.
And the music was a jazz performer, Bob
That what it
Sorbert, I
was.
believe.
Yes.
Was that type of music hip with your particular generation at that point? Why do you think they
Absolutely
chose that
not.
composer?
I have absolutely no idea, but man, did it work. That's the one thing I walked away from, because you sit there almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre when you realize musically you've never heard anything like this before. Night Stalker was very much, I've never heard music like this before. And I mean, the beats were even felt alien, you know, they just, it was just so different. And I knew that it's like, yeah, they're really trying to give us something that's different. You know, I mean, on all levels. The cinematography, it was movie. You know, it was
And
movie quality.
But it was technically a TV movie, or it is a
Made
TV movie.
made for TV.
Yeah.
And it took me 20 years to see it on a big screen.
see,
But
and when did that happen? How did you see it on the big screen? Was it a
it was at
theatrical release?
it was at a convention. No, it was at a convention.
Okay.
But fortunately, they had in this hotel they had a theater.
Ooh.
So it wasn't, you know, again, we always joke about the science
Pull it
teacher
down.
coming on
Yeah.
pulling the thing.
Pull the screen down.
Yeah, it was not like that. They had a legitimate theater, and by the way, it was gorgeous too. I mean,
Aw,
it's like
dang.
it was like you know, velvets and the plush stuff that they used to have. Just really nice. So I can't remember the college. So someplace in Connecticut.
Okay.
See,
So
and like
anyway,
you were saying, the whole idea of it looking like a film and feeling like a film. Again, Dan Curtis had a very cinematic imagination when it came to Dark Shadows and the other
yep,
TV work he had done. Then you get John Moxley, who directed, was it Horror Hotel, I
yep,
believe, and multitudes of the other genre films down the line for television and film.
yep.
All those factors come in, and I can imagine at that time that, and it's horror, which on TV outside of anthology you didn't get to see a lot, right? Aside from
Right,
syndicated versions of feature films,
right.
obviously.
Yeah, that you would get, but no, as far as uh, in fact, it started a trend because after that there were a ton of movies, and they weren't necessarily ripping off Night Stalker, but they absolutely were horror. So
Oh,
Right.
you had some with killer machines like Killdozer,
bulldozer.
and things like that. But it's true, they didn't have. I don't remember anything horror, out and out horror before the Night Stalker, and then there was a lot of stuff.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
So, since you drew the line in the sand with Night Stalker, I remember you mentioning before that TV guides called them melodramas.
Yes.
They didn't call them
Mm.
horror movies
No.
or anything. They just melodrama. So,
Right.
would you say that after the Night Stalker or Kolchak, they started using the category or genre horror?
It wouldn't have been far from that, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure they did carry melodrama a little bit further into the 70s.
Ah,
But I'm pretty sure that by the time the series came along, they might have stopped using it. So a couple of years later.
yeah, because Ricky was saying that he doesn't remember them being called melodrama.
Right. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was early on. And again, if it hadn't been so blatantly obvious, so it must have been a movie like The
Hmm.
Wolfman, where I saw melodrama after The Wolfman, and I'm like, well, no, that's a horror movie. And then realizing, okay, so melodrama is going to be instead of
Horror. Yeah.
horror or terror or whatever.
Yes.
So that's how that got through this thick skull. And after that, you'd be laser focused on that word.
Melodrama. Yeah, because you want to find your stuff. So
Absolutely, man. So yeah, that I can't remember exactly when they switched to horror. In fact,
okay.
they might have gone to thriller
Oh
first.
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I seem to remember thriller.
Oh.
And thinking that uh what was the one, there was one with space vampires that was just a gorgeous, I just can't think of the name of the movie, but it was absolutely beautiful looking movie, and that said thriller, that I'm positive of. So
Interesting.
they had not even adopted sci-fi yet.
Oh.
Planet of the Planet of the Vampires. I don't know. I can't remember it. I just remember it.
The Morio Bava one,
Yeah,
right?
is it Planet
Okay,
of
yeah,
the?
that's
Oh my God, what a beautiful, beautiful movie that is. It's a little bit, it's a little bit dated, but it's gorgeous.
Technicolor at its best.
Yes, seeing that movie, and I'm sure Rick, when you saw it, um, even though it was a few years later, it was still like nothing you had seen, right?
Oh, absolutely. In
Yeah,
fact, for me, it was kind of bicycling backwards because my connection to Kolchak came from when I was a kid. I would do this thing where I just didn't want to sleep. I wanted to stay up with my mom.
yeah,
And I would say, "Can I sleep next to you on the couch?" So I would rest my head on her lap and I would pull the blanket over my head. And I think she knew full well I wasn't sleeping. Whatever she was watching, I would just kind of peek out and just watch. And she, during this time, is when CBS, which had picked up the Night Stalker franchise, they would show this after the news. This would be late night television
yep,
before they had started their own original programming years later with like Silk Stockings and shows like that. And again, it amazed me how much it clicked with me,
yeah,
and it shouldn't. I'm a little kid, and here I am watching this. This at the time baby boomer, basically, sort of character. I shouldn't have any connection with this guy, but I just loved it. I just loved everything about him. The suit, the hat, his tenacity with people, his just the fact that he keeps going after these crazy stories, which of course by this time he knows these monsters exist, but he keeps running into the fray every time. He's like,
right,
hmm, this is a zombie, and in order for me to kill the zombie, I need to do the following. But he does it because
yeah,
he's just something so true blue about him. Like it's just, he is the definition of the do-gooder.
Right.
No matter, again, no matter how down and out, he does the right thing.
Yep. And Simon Oakland is the perfect foil.
Oh, is
Oh
that
my God.
Vincenzo?
Yeah.
That's Vincenzo, who, by the way, for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought his name was Nincenzo. It wasn't until a long time after that I was like, oh, there's a V in there, Vincenzo. But they are some of my favorite dynamics, even in the movie. Their relationship is cemented so, going back to Matheson and his writing, so vivid and just so perfect, I love it when, because Vincenzo wants to do the right thing too, but hey, he's got the city of Las Vegas breathing down his neck,
He has somebody he needs to answer to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
he's
that
got the police.
scene,
It's always the police force. It's always the and of course the owner of the station and or I'm sorry, the newspaper.
of the paper,
Yeah, I mean everybody. There isn't anybody who isn't against this, and they're all on Vincenzo's back.
Yep.
And Oakland takes what is basically a archetype character. He's Perry White from Superman. He's from, he's that type of character, but he just gives his own slant to it. He's got
so great.
The shirt is unshelved. He's got his arm sleeves rolled up. We never see him do it, but if he had a thing of Pepto-Bismol on his desk, I wouldn't be surprised. He's just like throwing it back all the time. And just that dynamic of, Carl, can't you just take it easy? Can't you just do this? And he's like, no, this is, and that speech, man, this is news and we are a newspaper. It's like, I just love it, man. It's so great.
What Kolchak did you see first?
The very first one I can remember is the reptile.
Oh,
do you
so
remember
not even
that episode?
The Night Stalker. Okay.
No, I didn't find out until later. You can tell who doesn't read my work. I'm kidding, Debbie. I didn't show you that one. But yeah, I didn't know it existed until my teenage years. My first year of high school, I think. And my mom's like, oh, by the way, yeah, there were movies. I'm like, what do you mean there were movies? Because they just hadn't aired. So I tracked them down at our video store because they had been released to, just the single titles had been released. And I found that I loved the movie so much more than everything. That original, better than the show, better than Night Strangler. It was just, there's something about that movie. It's like you said, it's cinematic and it just works so well.
But I always saw Night Strangler as like a solid 9. I mean, it
was a good follow-up.
It just wasn't. It wasn't the first one,
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of sequels that come along nowadays, we go, yeah, it was pretty good. It just wasn't the original.
Well, they had the perfect haunted house, which was an entire city underground. So, I mean, they got to walk around in that, and that's creepy to begin with. So, anyway, enough. I'm sorry, we're not doing Night Stalker
just yet.
I mean, Night Strangler. Yeah. So.
Cool Verge, though. Cool Verge, the villain. Jano Scorzini, I don't know if you're aware of this, Rich, that was what they chose to name the lead werewolf, Chuck Connor's character on Werewolf, the series back in the 80s.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I always love throwing that tidbit out to people.
Yeah, well, you got me on it because I had no idea.
See, and unlike you, outside of my mom, I did not have a lot of people who appreciated the Night Stalker.
Right.
I tried to show it to a lot of my teenage friends, and they were like, I don't know, man, this music. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with the music? The music's fantastic.
Nothing wrong with the music.
Because they're like, they picked on the opening, with him coming in and whistling and everything. And I'm just like, no, just wait for it. It's going to get dark. Just wait. And the moment it kicks in, they're just like, it's all right. And I'm like, all right, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. And it's difficult. It's always difficult when you see genius and you're the only one, or there's, the people around you don't see it. And I'm like, because I've been in that situation a ton of times, and it's like, are you really that blind that you don't get this? You know?
Get it, man, get it.
Yeah.
And I know one of the biggest things I took from it as a child and teenager, again, him going back to the truth in a situation and the conflicts he's always having with law enforcement or the higher authorities. And it was so funny. Every story I wrote would have that sort of dynamic somewhere.
Yep.
And when you think about it, and you would have to tell me this because you were more privy to it, were there any other programs, TV shows, or movies you can think of where they brought in what is now considered a cliche, the whole idea of reporters and law enforcement not getting along?
I don't think so. I mean, you would think that anything about a newspaper would have that dynamic in it, but
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't remember any others. No.
Because it definitely became
Oh
essentially a
God.
cliche after a
Yeah.
while
Oh,
that
yeah.
reporters are hated by the cops and the cops hate reporters, and it's just that type of situation.
Yep.
And poor Carl, man, in that first movie, he is just the punching bag of every one of those local authorities,
Yep.
especially the sheriff. The sheriff hates him. Meeker just
Yep.
doesn't like him at all. He's like, "Now you keep your mouth shut, Kolchak." or it's like, "Let us continue our investigation." I love those moments.
Yeah. Yep. It again. Matheson wrote it so well that you buy everybody's position. It's like, yeah, okay, I completely believe that Larry Linville is from MASH is a surgeon, and stuff like it's just stuff like that.
I like how they call him Boy Coroner.
Yeah.
And it's like, isn't that
I
dude
asked
like
about
40
that.
years old right there?
Yeah.
It's like, but he's in a room of a bunch of 50 to 60-year-olds. So I guess it
Exactly
makes
right.
sense that they're
Yeah.
going to be.
It's the new kid on the block kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it gets ridiculed for his comment about, you're telling me a dog did this? Well, I'm not saying that.
Bite was similar.
Yeah. It really is kind of I don't like to use perfect, but the script was, let's put it this way, it was perfect for the production that they were doing.
Well, here's the
Because
thing.
go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, please.
No, what I was going to say with Matheson, but did he ever write anything that you could say objectionably was bad? I mean, am I
No,
putting him too high up on the
no.
pedestal? Because I can't think of anything between his Twilight Zone work, Duel. I mean, Duels. Oh my God, that is like Hitchcock level writing and
Right,
craft.
right.
Like if Spielberg had not directed that, I have a hard time believing anyone could have fucked that up
Yep,
because the script is so good.
it is. But again, that's him. I mean, he just and here's a guy who went from um, the Universal classics because he wrote The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Ooh.
So there you go. I mean, there's a classic right there, and then everything seemed to be him. He was damn near perfect.
Just
I
on an
don't
even
remember
level.
anything that I didn't like. He has a few short stories that have become classics also, and uh, he's just brilliant. And honestly, if it wasn't for Harlan Ellison being my favorite writer, he is just right behind that. I mean, I think that I think Matheson is just genius.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's wild to see his name come up on so many things that, for me, I forget about. Watching Twilight Zone the movie, his name's on there. It's just
Yep.
so many different projects. I'm like, oh shit, he wrote that story.
Yep. It's pretty remarkable. A pretty remarkable career. I love the movie, the Comedy of Terrors. I've always loved that movie, and he wrote that, and you know, again, you just sit there and say, well, then I'm not even surprised that I worship this movie because I know who wrote it.
So, sweetheart, your first interactions with the movie, which I always love watching your first interactions with something, because it many times it's 50-50. I'm like, oh, she's gonna love this, or she's gonna, oh, that didn't go over well.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously my only introduction to Darren McGavin was A Christmas Story. That's who I knew him from. Like, oh, okay, he's the dad, and great actor from that. And I don't think I've seen anything else of his. That's literally it. And then Ricky comes to me and is like, "Oh, we're doing Kolchak," and I was like, "What? Huh? Who's
Yeah.
that? What is this?" I don't have any background on it at all, aside from the time that you guys talk, and you guys talk a lot about this particular series. Uh, so he found a link to the Night Stalker. There you go. And that was my first question. Like, why does it say Kolchak the Night Stalker, but the movie says the Night Stalker? There's no Kolchak on that. It's just different. But right afterward, you get into it, and it does draw you in. I was amazed at how much I liked this little TV movie.
Yep.
There was nothing in it that I felt was off-putting, because everybody had such a great charm to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the parts that I did not expect were to actually be scared. Because, okay, this is something that was made quite a bit ago. So I'm
And
thinking,
for
how scary could it
TV
be?
and
And for
for
TV.
television.
So
Yeah.
how scary could it be? But when you get the shot of that dude's eyes, Janos's eyes, you
Yep.
look, I'm like, oh my god, that's freaking creepy. He looks like a vampire. Like, I wouldn't want to be in a dark alleyway with this dude.
Yep.
So yes, I got scared a couple times and excited, because again, it was kind of a thrilling feeling to watch these characters go through what they were going through. And I I made a funny correlation, because I didn't realize that Kolchak's girlfriend, is her name Gail?
Yeah, Gail
Yeah.
Foster. Yep.
Gail Foster. So I didn't realize that she was a lady of the nights.
Yeah.
So she obviously does her work and stuff. And he's talking to her saying, I don't think you should work, anymore. Don't work nights and blah blah blah. So
Yep.
he's worried about her. And then there's a scene where she's is it a casino that she's sitting in?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah,
she's
that's where
in a
they're hanging
casino.
out. That's her place, you figure,
She's
for
all,
to meet her.
dressed very nicely, and you see she's crocheting. And I started laughing, because I also crochet, and I know that we have a nickname. We call crochet people who crochet, we're called hookers.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my god, that's so funny to me." So
And
I
I
got it.
guarantee you that was deliberate.
Yes, it
I
had to be.
guarantee it.
But the fact that she wasn't even looking at her stitching when she was doing, I was like, "Oh yeah, she does that in real life." I could
Yeah.
tell.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could tell.
But the dynamic that they had, the relationship that really Kolchak has with everybody,
Hmm.
it's really, I won't even say wholesome, but it's the kind of relationships that you feel are real.
Yes.
You feel that they are a couple, him and his girlfriend.
Yep.
They I mean, he even got to the point where he's like, "Marry me."
Yep.
It's been, we've been through so much together. He wants this woman to be his.
Yeah.
So I thought that was so cute and wonderful. And then once you get to the end, you're like, "Oh no!" It stressed me out finding out what happened. Like, I got really upset. But watching this movie, it just made me realize that really, it's the people who put it together, right down to the idea guy, the one who who comes up with it and brings everybody together. Ricky's right. If you don't have that person steering and being the spearhead for everything to bring it all together, then really a project will fall through the cracks. And
Yes.
since this was something so special and it speaks to so many different people in different ways, but the main idea of what they're trying to get across is still there, which is this sleazy slash cowardly newspaper reporter. He he has excuse me, he has a journey, and we're there for the ride. We're there
Right.
to watch him evolve from where he starts off as this down and out newspaper reporter. He's constantly being kicked down and on the wrong side of right. So
Well,
The
I'll say two things. First of all, what I really appreciated about Barry Atwater was that his character was kind of more beast than gentleman. This was not a tuxedo vampire
yes,
who came from royalty or anything else like that. This guy would literally tear you from limb to limb.
he's a freaking animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that had to be brutal in 1972. That first kill when he picks her up and
Yes,
slams her into the
yes.
wall.
Yeah.
No other show had
No.
even
The shock.
remotely come close to that type of violence, right?
We were still to the point when somebody got shot, they'd go like this and no blood, no anything, and then they fall on the ground. And I always thought that was the most ludicrous shit, because what you're doing without knowing it, I guess, you're teaching kids that if you get shot, you just go like this and fall on the ground, and that's it. And it's
Yeah.
like, I would much prefer people to know that bullets leave holes,
And they can kill you.
yeah, and they can kill you. Almost got me. And it was just one of those deals that I so appreciated the fact that he was kind of a beast.
Mm-hmm.
And the
The
other thing
intensity.
I wanted
Yeah.
to say was, I really hope that you will continue and watch Night Strangler,
Oh yeah, yeah.
because
Definitely.
I think it's a great little movie also. It's not the first one, but you know what? It's still got some pretty cool stuff in it.
I want to continue this series because like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the first movie. So
Good.
yeah.
Going back to the intensity, her reactions in the finale when Carl's in the house.
Oh yeah.
It's so brilliant because there's no music, like you said. It's just, but she was so funny. She's like, "Stop, God, man, you're making too much noise. He's
You're
gonna
like,
hear
oh my
you."
Jesus, you're so freaking
They,
loud.
because they milk it, man. He creaks what 3 or 4
Yeah.
times. And there's shots of and then he
And then
looks
he
to the right.
stops and looks around.
Yep.
All I can picture is at home people going, "Shh,
Right.
he'll hear you."
You're
I know
involved.
my mom had to be going crazy at that point in time. I could see her just like sitting up on the couch freaking out, you know.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
the music, going back to that. Okay, so I was down with the music until he was in his car driving, and then some funky stuff came on. I was like,
The
oh my God.
and she was just like, "I don't know
it
about
was
this
just,
music."
you want to talk jazz? That was fucking jazz. Like, I don't understand it. That part
I
was like,
remember when I watched Night Stalker the first time. Again, I was used to the Gil Mel music,
Right.
and Jerry Fielding, who did score some music for it too. And then you're dun 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 dun.
Yep.
I'm like, this is different, but I like it.
Yep.
but
Yep.
otherwise it was very good.
Except for the car ride.
Yes.
But going back to Gail and Carl, that really is like on repeat viewings. Every time I see it, it's just one of my favorite parts because, I mean, first of all, Carol Lindley, why didn't she become a bigger thing?
No
I don't
idea.
understand that. She's fucking just gorgeous lady, these crazy eyes and everything. And just, I love their interaction with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I love when she falls asleep. And he comes up to the bed, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I nodded off." He goes, "You do a lot for my masculinity, you know that." But and it was so funny because I remember watching it, because when I brought the VHS tape home and my mom watched it with me, it was so funny. She was the one who was basically like, I had to ask. I'm like, "So what does she do at the hotel?" And it's like, "She's a working girl." I'm like, "No, that doesn't make any sense." And then I watched it again, and you hear her dialogue. "Oh, there's my guy," and she runs off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh," and then she's talking about the other girl who worked the place, and I'm just
Yep.
like, it's such an interesting
I
dynamic
never
with these
picked up
two
on it
characters,
until, yeah.
and for them to, it's just interesting. It reminds me of the relationship in Jackie Brown in some respects.
Right.
Yes.
You have two people who have, these are older people. They've had rough lives, you get an idea of, because I'm pretty sure Gail has had seen something in her life to force her into her job. And it's just interesting. I want to know how they met in the first place. That image in my head is like, how would that have worked? Did he meet her at, like, was there a stabbing at the casino? And he's just like, "I'm gonna ask this beautiful girl, hey, what happened exactly?" But I just, again, their relationship is so on point, and their
Well,
interaction together is so, she's the one who makes him take the vampire thing seriously.
yep.
Yes.
Carl is just operating on the idea that this gentleman thinks he's a vampire. He's just
Right.
killing people like a vampire. So when she asks, "What do you know about vampires?" he
Yeah.
laughs about it. He
Yep.
goes, "What is it? They wear dinner suits, or they wear leisure suits, and they talk with marbles in their mouth." And she comes out with this stack of books for him about vampires.
Yep.
And I just love that dynamic, that he's not a true believer from the beginning.
And I've always looked at them as two damaged people who just happened to, whatever the situation was, whether he was lonely and decided to pay, or what, but they were both damaged individuals, and I think
They found each other.
that's exactly what keeps them together.
Yeah. But they work
Did you
really
know?
well together.
Did you know that Lindley would have been Diane if Twin Peaks was picked up initially for a third season on ABC back in the day?
I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. She was obviously older at that time, but that would have been wild to see her as Diane. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a shame. Um, yeah, but she was in some stuff. I can't remember. I keep thinking she was in a movie adaptation of Cat and the Canary,
Hmm.
Huh.
but I'm not 100% sure. And that's a borderline horror, horror mystery kind of thing. Um,
Right.
I've got a strange verge.
yeah.
So right before I watched Kolchak, I was in the kitchen making meal prep stuff, and First Blood Part 2 came on TV.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'd never seen the Rambo series before. I knew who he was, but I didn't know, like, the movies.
So,
So I'm sitting here cooking, and in the background, I look over, and his woman. Oh, spoilers, by the way, if you've never seen Rambo Part 2. he his woman, who, they just went through hell and high water to get to where they are, and she's just like, "Yeah, Rambo, you're my guy, take me with you to America and stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." She gets up, and across the river are the bad guys. They shoot her down, and she's laying in the river dying. And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm stressed because poor Rambo, he just lost the love of his life, the only woman who literally could have understood him and what he has gone through."
well, that's true. Yeah.
Has just
Understanding.
died.
Yeah.
So that happened. Later that day, Ricky puts on Kolchak, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Oh, spoilers, by the way. Yeah, Kolchak
Forward past this
loses
part if you don't
Gale.
want to know.
Yeah, fast forward. But he loses Gale. Like,
Yep.
that that was heartbreaking to me. And I was like, no, you can't tell me that they don't get back together. The asshole scared her so much that she literally dipped and he can't find her.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was like heartbreak. I'm like, aw, the only other person who really would have understood him.
See, and I think that's the thing. I think younger people who watch this, I don't think they'll get it right away. It would be like, well, why couldn't he find her? It's like, this is a different time. It was very easy to get lost from
Oh,
people.
yeah.
You didn't have, I mean, yes, there were telephones, but it didn't mean you were listed in the phone book or anything. So unless you were authorities, and even then, that was difficult to track someone down.
Yeah.
Once you went from state to state. So yeah, to think that he loses her and he never gets to find her again, it's pretty brutal. Like how quickly he comes from the high of I'm back on top, I'm getting married, I'm gonna get back to New York or Chicago, and boom, minutes. You
Yeah.
know, it is so great, that final scene with him and Vincenzo. And he's like,
Vincenzo.
this looks great, this looks wonderful, and he goes, "You're a hell
Mhm.
of a reporter, Carl." And he stops and he looks at him like, "Why are you being nice
Because,
to me?"
Yeah.
right? It's so
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think Oakland, he nailed that scene, his
Yes.
expression and everything after Carl leaves. And Kolchak's buddy, he
Yes.
seems really heartbroken about what's going to happen to Carl.
He was like on the
You
verge of
know,
tears. He's like,
yeah, it was
let me know where
it's
you
an
end up.
underrated
Like,
performance.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bottom line is, and again, from my experience, I don't know about you guys, but there isn't a bad casting move in that whole movie.
I
I
agree.
mean, everybody who's in there looks like they're supposed to be who they're playing in that movie. It was just, it really was. It was jolting how different it was.
Right up to the the little 5 foot nothing girl at the beginning. Who's just strutting
The
her
one that's
stuff.
supposed to be 25 years old, that one? Is that the one you're
Yeah.
talking about?
But regardless, poor thing, man. Oh, geez, that was such a shock seeing her get lifted that way. And I'm like, no.
See, that's the thing. It really was brutal. I mean,
Yes.
and he set himself up as being brutal.
This
So,
is the animal monster that he
yep,
is. Yeah.
yep, and that scares me.
100%.
And again, I know Bela had tons of victims, but I
But he was
always
so
thought,
smooth.
yeah, I can get away with someone with manners,
Yeah, this guy
but
got no manners.
that beast thing that Janos Skorzeny was, no, I wouldn't have stood a chance.
Mm-mm.
I
We're
would have
not
been,
making it out of
yeah,
their life.
there you go,
And
Or in one
dead
piece.
in 8 seconds. That would have been it.
and you know who I love out of the authorities that Carl tangles with? The district attorney,
Yeah.
Thomas Paine, I believe. Callie kept, calling out his eyebrows
His
big time.
eyebrows.
But what does he say to Carl? It's like, you'll be out of town on your, was it cushy tushy? Is that what he says?
Yeah.
Something to that effect. And then he follows it up with, you dig? And I'm like,
You
I dig. So,
dig.
to hear Darren McGavin say, I dig, is just,
Yeah.
I could hear that. I could use that as a phone ringer, and I would love it. People call, I
Yeah.
dig. I dig. Just the way he says it is great.
Oh, boy.
And you better start cooperating with that fat Kolchak,
Or you want to get your pushy tushy kicked right out of town. You dig?
Yes, sir, I dig. But just remember, the next time you blow it, who's got the answers, sir?
And Ralph Meeker is as his friend. He's the one who, do you believe in vampires, little boy? Yeah, kind of stuff. Just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and it's such, again, it goes back to Matheson. It's like, I love the idea that all these people are just hanging out in places in Vegas, because it is what is it? It's a gambling community, because I think at that point it's not even on the map as like a family tourist attraction, right? It's still the city of sin at that point, around that time.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that, they're hanging out at the pool, having a drink, talking about the case he's working on and everything, It's just so wonderfully done. I love that mess.
There truly isn't I don't think a scene exists that should have gone in and didn't, and I don't think there's a scene that exists that that didn't belong. I mean, it's just end to end. It's just jam packed with great stuff, and some of it is action, and some of it are people sitting down talking, and it's still all great.
It is still all great. But when Ricky and I were watching the TV spots,
Yeah.
we found some scenes with dialogue that were not in the movie.
Yeah,
That's kind of
surprisingly.
interesting.
It is. Like there were two lines that he does not say. And I was like, hey, wait a second. That wasn't in the movie. So we'll have to bring that up.
Okay.
And yeah.
So here's my question. Did it sound like he was saying it, or was he dubbed over?
No, he said
Oh no, it was him because he's on screen at that moment. Yeah.
Damn.
It's pretty interesting. I think what it was, he was very heightened in the scene, so he's almost coming off as when he goes off on Vincenzo on that level, you know. So I think maybe they just wanted him to stay down here without kind of losing
going
his
over the
composure,
top.
maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I think
why would
maybe
they
they
put
just
that in
wanted
the
to,
TV spot but not in the movie?
because the people who cut the trailers together aren't the same
Don't
people that work
watch.
on the actual
Yeah.
production. So
Yep.
But they still gave them access to those clips, though. See, that's what I'm asking. Is like,
Yeah,
if it's not part of the finished movie,
right? But there would be, what they would be doing is cutting trailers even while the movie was still being edited. So
so they have access to stuff
yeah,
that
so
might not
that
even
stuff,
be in there.
that stuff, right? That stuff ended up getting cut for whatever reason. Now, of course, this is where Rick and I would prefer to be able to go to a bookstore and pick up a Cine Fantastique that did a 20-page essay on what that dialogue was, because that was the magazine that would have done it. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, I would be more than happy to read 20 pages on the dialogue that was taken out.
Yeah, we'll find it and we'll send it to you so that you can take a look at it too.
It was just sensational, really good.
Going back to both Thomas Paine and Darren McGavin, I love after the press conference, they're walking out and the DA takes Carl's arm like they're on a date. He takes his arm in his and he's like, Carl, I'm going to have to talk to Vincenzo about you. And Darren McGavin has this wonderful expression like, why are you touching me? He's like looking down at his arm. I love that reaction. It's just like, no, don't touch. Just so. And also, whoever watches it, when you watch the press conference, get a load of the dude sitting to the left of Carl. It's this African American gentleman, man. He's just got this great expression on his face, and then when Carl gets all uppity, he looks over like an embarrassment, like, hey, you need to chill out, man. And it's like just kind of the way he looks at Carl is just wonderful. I love it. It's like, who is that guy? I want to know who that guy is.
Yeah, I remember that. God, now I started laughing and now I'm coughing. Yeah, it's the joke that took Rich out.
Oh no.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, that I just look back on that time and especially that movie, and I just so appreciate the fact that we got it,
Yeah.
that they bothered to make it, because I guarantee you there were probably 6 or 7 projects that were that interesting that just got thrown away in the garbage. It was just, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
This, thank God, got through. I don't know how, but it got through. And then, of course, they were rewarded because it got huge ratings.
Yes.
Massive stuff, massive numbers. So
let's show our fandom. Well, your guys' fandom. Rich, go ahead and show your t-shirt.
Oh.
Beautiful.
That's great.
And it looks like a Famous Monsters cover. And if you guys don't know what Famous Monsters magazine is, you really should. So look it up.
And not just because he wrote in it at one point.
Well, yeah, there's that.
There's that.
Mine is a Temu special where all they did was steal the cover art from, I believe, one of the novels. I think it was. It's not an original piece of work by any means, but hey, $6. What are you gonna do?
There you go. Yeah, because you bet your ass that they didn't charge me $6. I had to pay a little bit more. So,
but worth it.
Oh yeah, that's a $30 one plus shipping, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do we have any final thoughts then? Because I think it's been a pretty well-rounded conversation about the original Night Stalker.
I have a final thought. If you haven't seen this frickin' movie, watch it. I'm not even saying I think you'll like it. It's freaking great. Watch it. Okay.
I agree, man. If you're on the fence about it due to how old you are, maybe you don't think it's that type of thing you want to get into, you need to check it out because it truly was an inspiration for things that came down the line, including Salem's Lot. I'm almost certain that if Night Stalker hadn't happened, there's a good likelihood we wouldn't have seen the likes of a Salem's Lot and what you can do with the medium.
X-Files.
Oh, absolutely. Huge influence. Even Twin Peaks, I think, is inspired in many respects.
And I think Buffy is too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because they had that humor. See, that's the thing. Night Stalker has some legitimately funny stuff in it. Mm-hmm. They never did that kind of stuff on television.
They
ever.
Did stuff.
It was either a comedy or it was a thriller. And in this case, they had both. And guess what else comes along a couple of decades later and has both? Buffy. And genius level, because that thing, Buffy was, and we could just take Hush, how legitimately creepy that episode was. And they're still doing stuff that is absolutely hysterical in it. Just not the bad guys, not the big bads. So yeah, Night Stalker influenced a ton of stuff.
And the thing is, if it came out, I'd say 10 years later, you would have had Carl Kolchak under ruse. You would have seen all sorts of merchandising because it was that big of a deal. And I think
I'd be wearing them.
He's like, even now, it's like, oh, man, that's
now.
some old underoos. That's some old underoos. But
I need them in a certain size.
Wow, that's a big kid you got there. Well, yeah, whatever.
Kid of all ages. You know what?
Exactly.
He doesn't want to grow up. No, but I love finally talking about this one. It's something, again, we've mentioned it a few times that we need to talk about Night Stalker. And I can't wait to talk about Night Strangler and then the TV episodes, which some of the episodes stand on the shoulders of the original movie.
Yep.
Here's the thing, even the ones that are at maybe the least best of the series are still fantastic. Because
he's in it.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
No matter what happens, even if the monster, like Mr. Ring, even at that, the monster's not so great in each of those episodes. Some are, some aren't. But take all that away, you still got Carl Kolchak, and you listen to every word he says, or at least if you're like us. You hang on his words. So
now, wait a minute. Let's go back to the monsters for a second. Are you telling me you didn't buy Chopper, the headless motorcyclist? You didn't see that technology, the way they were able to hide his head by simply giving really large shoulders to where the actor can put his head down? Are you telling me you didn't buy that? You weren't amazed by that?
Right, and his arms coming out the bottom of his rib cage.
written by a young Bob Gale and one
Yep.
Robert Zemeckis.
Yup.
What?
The
Yeah.
future creators of Back to the Future.
Damn right.
Wild.
Nice.
Not to mention the series down the line when we get to that, the creator of The Sopranos was one of the key creative team.
Yep. And
insane.
And even when he had problems with it, because on the discs there's some things that he's interviewed in. Even that, he says at the very end, you know, I don't want to give the wrong impression that I didn't like it. He said it was terrific to work on.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad things that went on with the show, but it's still, you know, I would have watched an entire episode that had no monsters just for Carl.
Yeah.
Like if it was just an episode about him getting up and just doing his dry cleaning, getting a hot dog, you know, dropping by for the office for a second to get chewed out by Vincenzo, you know, and then, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. You know, I was just grabbing my check. I'll be out the door.
Yep.
You know. Yeah, that's how good of a show it was, and he really was the guy to bring it together in many respects. He was the magnet for everything. Because I think you're right. Like, who would have been a actor of McGavin's framework for that time?
No one.
Like who?
I'm sticking to that. Nobody.
Yeah, because it's like you know, of the actors of the period, if you put anyone else in that, it's just like he got it.
Yeah,
and
he
whether
championed
it was.
He championed the series.
Oh, yeah,
he championed the second movie. And when he was done shooting The Night Stalker, he did some press and said, "Great movie."
You know what's funny is, again, we went down a rabbit hole after we watched the movie, and we found an interview with him on Regis Philbin's show back before Regis and Kelly. So this was probably like 1981, maybe 82,
probably.
And you see Darren McGavin, and I really get the vibe that he was Carl Kolchak.
Right.
And I mean his mannerisms and everything, because yeah, you can say, well, it's the actor who plays him. No, just the way he came off, it sounded like Carl Kolchak being interviewed, you know, and it was a beautiful interview, but just really, it's tremendous. And yeah, you need to watch it at least once to say that you watched it.
Yes. Give it a shot. You won't be disappointed.
And
if you're disappointed, sorry, we liked it.
Actually, if you were disappointed, never watch this podcast again.
You're not allowed.
Get out of my podcast.
You lost your MonsterKid Fury watching card. You're not allowed to watch the show any longer.
Beautiful. All right. With that, Rich, do you have any last words on this subject?
Well, let me see. I already did the make damn sure you watch. Well, still, make damn sure you watch it. And I love you too. And I'll see you next time.
Love you. Catch you next time.
Okay.
And Ricky, do you have any last words?
Friday, March 21st, 1:28 p.m. 3 people came together to talk about a...
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this one. We definitely had a fun time at it. Catch us on the next round.